just 1 month after a prisoner in South Georgia stabbed a corrections officer and killed him.
We've been having instances where inmates have been making shanks out of materials inside our facilities and are actually attacking deputies.
The vests will protect from bullets and shanks. The sheriff's office also added horses to its mounted patrol unit and swore those horses in tonight.
Now, the birth home of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is closing for 2 years. The house was built in 1895 and needs upgrades to its electrical, AC, fire suppression systems. The artifacts currently in the house will be taken off site until the house reopens in November of 2025. It shuts down this November 27th.
And next, Starbucks workers nationwide, including at some locations in Metro Atlanta, plan to go on strike tomorrow on Red Cup Thursday. That's the day Starbucks launches its holiday cups. The union says they want to negotiate staffing and scheduling issues.
New tonight, we are hearing from one of the defendants in the Georgia election interference case after prosecutors asked a judge to put him in jail. They say Harrison Floyd violated his bond conditions several times in social media posts. So we went through the document, which includes posts that tag witnesses and other defendants. We spoke to Floyd tonight. He called the request a national disgrace and a circus. And this all comes as the judge gets ready to issue a protective order on some evidence in the case. We showed you video of two defendants speaking to prosecutors after they pled guilty. Well, today in court, the lawyer for Misty Hampton admitted he made those videos public. In the next 20 minutes, we're asking a lawyer, why would he do that and what this order means for the case.
Nearly 30 years after police found a woman dead in her bedroom, her killer is going to prison. Police say a new form of DNA testing helped prove Jerry Lee killed Lori Ann Smith in her South Fulton home in 1997. Today, we spoke exclusively to Smith's twin sister, who said it's a relief.
It was good to see the man be handcuffed and be taken away to prison.
Lee pled guilty to her murder and will spend 18 years in prison.
Tonight, a mother is suing a Henry County middle school after a student stabbed her daughter during a fight. We showed you video of the fight. This was back in March. Police say the student cut Ashley Wilson's daughter in the face at Ola Middle School. Well, now Wilson spoke exclusively to Channel 2 Action News and says the school knew that the student had a knife and did nothing.
Our children should be protected when they're at school, and the admin should be held accountable.
Henry County Schools says they will not comment on any pending lawsuit, but they promised back in March to increase security on campus.
We're learning about DeKalb County's plan to tackle a teacher shortage. We spoke exclusively with new superintendent Dr. Devin Horton, who started a new program that overhauled the application process. The district is offering free tuition and training to teachers if they promise to stay for 5 years. He said the changes are important as just about every school in DeKalb is short on teachers. Tonight, a Channel 2 Action News exclusive. Police in Austell say a man with an SUV decked out with flashing blue lights and K-9 unit decals is under arrest for posing as a police officer. Channel 2's Cobb County Bureau Chief Michelle Newell tells us what gave him away.
Put your hands on the hood for me, okay?
His SUV looked similar to a police cruiser, but he's the one who ended up
Put your hands on your back. This one as well.
in handcuffs.
Impersonating a police officer, I mean, it's dangerous.
Blue lights, K-9 unit stickers, even a license plate that says sheriff. Police say all of it was on the SUV Dylan Burton drove without a license. You can hear police confront Burton about all of it in this exclusive body camera video from the Austell Police Department.
All that stuff needs to be taken out of this vehicle immediately. Can you talk to me about the headrest and the K-9 stickers on the car? I took the headrest down.
It's very concerning when we have people doing this because we lose the ability of the public to trust us.
Police say a woman saw Burton's SUV parked in a neighborhood over the weekend.
The lady saw what she thought was a police car backed in the cul-de-sac.
She did what police say everyone should do if they are in a similar situation.
Well, you should always trust your instinct. If something doesn't seem right, there's some kind of underlying ulterior motive they would have in impersonating a police officer to victimize somebody.
Michelle Newell, WSB Tonight.
And we've seen several police impersonators across Metro Atlanta. Just 2 weeks ago, we showed you body cam video of a man lying to Gwinnett County officers.
I'm State Patrol. You're State Patrol? I know a little bit more than that. Do you have your ID?
Police arrested and charged 34-year-old William Godsey with a felony. In October, a man tried to arrest a couple at the scene of a crash in southwest Atlanta. Atlanta police say Terrence Jacks had on a fake Department of Homeland Security special agent badge when they confronted him. He was arrested and charged with impersonating a public officer. And in September, we told you about Lucas Jackstad, who's facing charges for impersonating a military police officer in Cobb County. Officers say he was using a stolen badge and handcuffs that belonged to the military recruiting station.
Another Atlanta restaurant is closing as new developments drive up rent prices. Henry's Tavern on 10th Street in Midtown will close November 30th. It's the latest business catering to a large base of LGBTQ+ customers that has shuttered in just the last few years. Others include Joe's on Juniper, Einstein's, and Outright. Henry's, named after the owner's dog, has been a popular spot for dog lovers in Midtown Atlanta for about a decade. The owner says development has been mostly good for business, at least until now.
The opportunity to raise rents has presented itself in a big way because of all of the growth here.
The owner says she's not sure yet if she'll reopen in another location.
Cloudy sky now. We've got a little sunshine in the forecast tomorrow before our next chance of rain. Take you through the timeline when the sun breaks through the clouds tomorrow and when the showers move back in next.
Lead in the water. It can cause developmental problems for children. What Georgia schools are doing now to protect students.
A warning for customers at a Lawrenceville restaurant after they were exposed to an infectious disease, why the health department says they should get to a doctor now.
Bring along, well, I shouldn't go into any more because that's been things I've been negotiating with Arab countries and others about what the next steps are. But anyway, thank you all very much. Appreciate it for everyone.
Thank you. This ends the press conference.
Listening there to the remarks that President Biden gave today, a little earlier this evening out of San Francisco, California. That, of course, is after his meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. A couple of live looks that we're going to give you right now on this Wednesday evening. The first one, again, out of San Francisco at this moment. That who you see there is a President Biden and pop icon Gwen Stefani of the band No Doubt. So they're checking out a fireworks show that is happening during this APEC summit dinner. A few prominent guests in attendance are Tim Cook of Apple, the Salesforce CEO Mark Benioff, Boeing Airplane CEO Stan Deal, and FedEx CEO Raj Subramanian. Organizers saying that Elon Musk of Tesla is also in attendance. Now, President Biden making short remarks at the beginning of this dinner. And you can also see there in this shot is First Lady Dr. Jill Biden. Another live look that we're taking you out to this Wednesday evening is this one all the way on the other side of the country in Washington, D.C. on the Senate floor as Senate members are voting for that continuing resolution to keep the government funded all through January of next year. Now, this is another short-term spending bill, but we know that the House just yesterday passed it through their floors, and now we're just waiting for what the Senate chooses to do. We did hear from Minority Leader Chuck Schumer about this voting that is happening at the moment, of course, late night for Senate members over in D.C. We're going to step away for a quick 2-minute break. When we come back, we continue with live looks out of San Francisco, the latest overseas in that conflict between Israel and Hamas, and also the latest when it comes to avoiding a government shutdown.
Welcome back to Fox Weather, everyone. I'm Kelly Costa. Let's head to the West Coast and talk about all of the rain and for some of you, even a little bit of snow. So as we head into the upcoming weekend, you're going to have some rounds of some rain and a little bit of mountain snow likely. This is all really coming from the same low pressure system. It just can't really move on and move to a different location until this high pressure moves out of the way. It's kind of blocking it in the short term. Eventually this will track to the east, but over the next couple of days, it's going to hang around. So 7 a.m. on Thursday. I will say Thursday's looking a little bit more isolated. You do get a better push of moisture jumping into your Friday. Thursday morning, though, you can see Fresno. You've got some spotty showers around you. Maybe southeastern Redding, you've got some spotty showers around you. Thursday afternoon, an isolated shower or thunderstorm. A lot of you across California are pretty dry on Thursday. 8 a.m. on Friday, a drier start to the day. Here's your next round of moisture as we get into Friday evening across Sacramento, San Francisco, heading into Fresno there. Friday night into Saturday morning, another round of some snow for the Sierra Nevada. A little bit of rain, and that clears out as we get into a Sunday morning. So here's the additional rainfall still to come. I just want to make it clear that it's not going to be raining every second of the next couple of days. You just continue to see these chances for a couple rounds over the next couple of days. Additional rainfall still to come through Sunday. Right along the coastline could be a pretty widespread spot of 1 to 2 inches, maybe additional isolated spots up to 2 to 3 inches. But that's just where we're getting the rainfall. Where we're getting the snow in the Sierra Nevada, it's obviously going to be, for some of you, close to a foot. I'll be showing you that. But here's Los Angeles monthly rainfall. A lot of people think of LA, they think of San Diego, and they probably go, okay, it's sunny all the time, right? That's true from May to September, but for the rest of the year, you start to see an increase in rainfall. Now, it's not exactly like you're looking at a lot of rain in October, November. I know it's all relative, but I don't know a lot of people that would consider a ½ inch or 3/4 inch of rain a lot of rainfall. You do see quite a bit more into December and January and February. So it is the start of your wet season. Los Angeles, trending a little bit drier Thursday, Friday. I still don't want to rule out an isolated shower for you, though. You do have some spotty showers ahead for Saturday and Sunday into Monday. Temperatures are actually going to be warming up quite a bit. Let's chat some snowfall for the Sierra Nevada. Some of the highest peaks could see about maybe 1.5 feet up to 2 feet of snowfall. Mammoth Lake's closer to 1 foot to 1.5 feet. This is through Sunday, by the way. Yosemite, you could be seeing a similar amount. So definitely not your worst snowstorm by any means at all whatsoever, but still an additional snow through Sunday could still cause some.
Lolita's about all of this.
Wendy, we reached out to Lolita's multiple times today. We called, we emailed, but we did not hear back from them. The health department, though, they did say that the restaurant is cooperating with their investigation. Wendy?
All right, Candace McCown reporting live from Lawrenceville. Thank you. Okay, let's break down hepatitis A. It's a contagious viral infection that affects your liver. Symptoms usually start 2 to 7 weeks after you're exposed, and those symptoms can include nausea, stomach pain, fatigue, and jaundice. And you're most likely to get Hep A from contaminated objects, food, or drinks. Doctors say most people who get it will make a full recovery.
Let's keep you ahead of what's happening next with our weather.
Here is a live look over Midtown Atlanta after a cooler and breezier day today. Let's check in with our chief meteorologist, Brad Nitz, who predicted this cool down live now in Severe Weather Center 2.
How do you do that?
Well, you know, we've got equipment and a lot of practice. Yeah. And so we've got a lot of clouds out there now, a little bit of rain down to the south. We had a little bit of rain today. Earlier, had those scattered showers. We've got that rain that's going to be pulling in from the north as we head through the next few hours. So that's going to be moving out. We've got the overcast sky now. Morning low temperature is going to dip down to 50 degrees, not just in Atlanta, but across most of metro Atlanta and North Georgia, upper 40s into the northeast Georgia mountains. And then high temperatures tomorrow, those are going to be topping out in the mid 60s. 66, our average high is 64, so it'd be just a touch above that across the metro area. Low 70s into northwest Georgia. So here's the forecast map. Overnight into the morning hours, we're going to stay cloudy and can't rule out a stray shower. Look closely here. You see a couple of spots of green, eastern half of our area. Slim rain chances through the morning. I don't expect these to have any impact on our morning commute. This is 7 a.m. Then as we head through the day, those very few showers that manage to get going at all won't last for long, and we'll see a mix of sun and clouds in the afternoon. So tomorrow afternoon, pretty nice. We'll have an easterly wind, at times gusting to 20 miles an hour, but partly cloudy and mid 60s, pretty good for this time of year. And we'll keep those clouds with a few breaks here and there into the evening hours. And then tracking our next chance of rain coming in on Friday. So Friday morning, here it is, overcast. We have the rain that has been and will continue to be mainly to our south, moving off the coast of Florida and Georgia. Our focus is going to be Friday on this approaching cold front and the rain that develops along and ahead of it. So through the daytime hours before the sun sets, Friday I expect will stay dry. But after sunset into the evening hours, we'll have some rain that'll move in. This is 10 p.m. on Friday, so tune in To WSB Tonight Friday, we'll be tracking a few showers coming through, but they come and go quickly. So dry to start the weekend with a few morning clouds on Saturday, and sunshine returns in the afternoon. So your 5-day forecast of the weekend always in view. More clouds in the morning, partly cloudy in the afternoon, and 66. Showers coming in Friday. Begin, that's going to be late evening and into the night. And then lots of sunshine Saturday, Sunday. Rain likely on Monday with high near 60.
Channel 2 Action News investigates a major health issue in schools. We're talking about tainted water. So we teamed up with ABC News to see if and how schools are testing the water for lead. Doctors say contamination can cause developmental issue in kids. We found Atlanta Public Schools leading the way. They started testing after the Flint water crisis nearly a decade ago.
Because of what was going on in Flint, we thought that we need to, if it can happen there, it can happen here.
Of course, that would be Flint, Michigan. There are no mandatory federal or state testing requirements, but more and more districts are joining a voluntary program. If you want to see if your child's school is among them, we put up a link to an interactive map with this story at WSBTV.com. Some useful information there. And as we talk about lead, the Georgia Department of Public Health is looking into lead poisoning from your children's snacks. So we've told you about 3 different applesauce pouches under recall, Wanabana, Shucks, and Weiss brands. We've seen 22 cases of high lead levels nationwide. None of those cases in Georgia, so that's good. But watch out for symptoms like headache, nausea, vomiting. And if your child ate one of these products, have them tested immediately.
Tonight, a local grandmother is finally getting a chance to tell her story about a dog attack. 85-year-old Ernestine Shaw says her neighbor's dog mauled her back in 2020. She suffered multiple bites and one wound even became infected. She wanted to be in court when the dog's owner appeared before a judge, but she was never informed about a trial date.
I was very upset. She don't know I cried. I cried because I felt like that I didn't get justice.
And get this, County Prosecutor Kenneth Green admits his office dropped the ball. He says he had to drop the vicious dog charge because there were no witnesses in the case.
So we now know who made public the video of the 2 witnesses in the Georgia election indictment case, but we don't know why. So tonight, I talked to a lawyer about how that video could impact the case.
On Wall Street, the Dow closed up 164 points and the NASDAQ gained about 9.5.
To go to conference on the NDAA. I urge everyone to stay here so we can finish the next vote quickly and then do the 3rd vote without further delay. I yield the floor to the wonderful chair of the Appropriations Committee who did so much to get us here.
Madam President.
Senator from Washington.
Thank you, Madam President. I will vote for this bill to avoid a senseless shutdown, although I do not care for this idea of 2 funding deadlines and double the shutdown risk. But the big picture I am focused on right now is what happens next, because avoiding a shutdown is so very far from mission accomplished. We have a lot of work to do after the dust settles and before the next shutdown deadline comes up. Now is not the time to pat ourselves on the back. It's time to roll up our sleeves and pass supplemental funding to address urgent global challenges and critical priorities here at home. Our leadership is on the line, and with it, the security of our allies and our nation. We cannot do half of our job here. We need a supplemental that fully addresses the challenges in Ukraine, Israel, humanitarian aid, and the Indo-Pacific. And enough with pitting American families against America's global leadership. We've got to tackle the child care crisis and other urgent domestic priorities, just as we address our urgent national security priorities. We are the United States of America. We can and must do both. And on that note, let me just say this. Failing to fully fund WIC for the first time ever is not an acceptable outcome to me under any circumstances. Now, turning to the year ahead, if we don't want to be right back here in a few weeks facing a 1-2 punch shutdown threat, we need all of us to get serious about one-year full spending bills. So I have an important message for Speaker Johnson and the House Republicans. We can only get these spending bills done if we are all on the same page when it comes to the top line numbers. The good news is That's already a settled matter because we actually passed bipartisan top lines in the debt limit deal that House Republicans and the President negotiated, a deal that Speaker Johnson voted for, along with so many other members on both sides of the aisle in both chambers. So let's be clear, the negotiating's already happened. House Republicans just need to stick to their word and what they helped pass into law. And I'm glad to see the Speaker abandon tying cuts or extreme policies to this CR. He will also need to do that to our annual bills if we're going to be able to conference any of them. Because if we can't get back to those top lines that this Congress has already agreed to, we're not going to get anywhere. It is that simple. We have to work together. We have to keep our word. We have to compromise, and that means listening to the other side, making some tough decisions, leaving out partisan non-starters, and writing a bill that can actually pass into law. That is going to make a difference for people we represent at home. That is exactly how Vice Chair Collins and I have been able to work with members across the political spectrum to craft 12 bipartisan spending bills. So let's get to work. Let's end this threat of a government shutdown, and then let's get that full-year funding our nation needs signed into law. Thank you, Madam President. I yield the floor, and I yield back all the time.
Without objection, all time is yielded back. Under the previous order, the bill is considered read a third time. The question occurs on passage of the bill. Is there a sufficient second? There appears to be. The clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.
Taking a look there at the Senate floor just earlier this evening, big breaking news, the Senate did vote overwhelmingly for legislation spearheaded by new Speaker Mike Johnson to fund the government until early next year. That vote passing at 87-11. I want to bring back this tweet from Fox News' Chad Pergram as he detailed this, which we just learned moments ago. It says Senate aligns with House, approves interim spending bill to avoid a shutdown, 87-11. It now goes to President Biden's desk to be signed. Senate and the House conservatives, they pledged that they would do everything in their power to avoid having to consider another omnibus spending package right before Christmas and New Year's. That's something that has become a Washington tradition. Johnson's two-step continuing resolution, which we first told you about over the weekend, he unveiled it last weekend, and it would do that by funding 2 tranches of government programs until January 19th and February 2nd. As a result, lawmakers won't face the usual end of the year stalemate that has been happening before and the threat of a government shutdown right before that Christmas recess. So big breaking news on this Wednesday evening. Senate members working late into the night over there on the East Coast. It is about 11:30 p.m. We're going to step away now for a quick break, the second one of the hour. Don't go anywhere. Many more top headlines when we come back.
Right now in Fox weather, unfortunately, a pretty awful flood situation unfolding all across southeast Florida. Some of the flash flood warnings near Fort Lauderdale and Miami have been extended into your Thursday morning. We're also talking Thanksgiving travel both this week and next week. Unfortunately, some of us somewhere are getting problems this week and next week. I'll be talking about those weather woes, and we're looking at a wet west. It's been a little bit wet over the last couple of days across areas of California, and I'm just letting you know, while Thursday is going to be a bit more isolated, we're expecting more rain, potential a little bit of snow in some spots of the Sierra Nevada getting into your Friday. Welcome to Fox Weather 1. I'm Kelly Costa. Let's get right to it. Southeastern Florida has gotten a lot of rain so far this week. Look at Fort Lauderdale just this past Tuesday, absolutely soaking, a little bit more reminiscent of what we typically get in the summertime. But it's not summertime. This is pretty atypical for this time of year, actually. We're actually getting into our dry season, not something we see every day. This led to a lot of actual flood reports coming into the National Weather Service, both in Fort Lauderdale and in Miami. In fact, in Miami, from the National Weather Service, there was flash flooding reported at 11th and Biscayne. There were 6 to 12 inches of water flowing across the roadway. Here's my piece of advice if you live in the Fort Lauderdale or Miami metro areas. For the rest of the night into Thursday morning, I don't suggest going out on the roads. Be very, very careful. Statistics tell us that the most dangerous thing you can do during flash flooding is going out driving around. And by that statistic, I mean most flood deaths occur in vehicles. It's not from flooding in people's homes. So I really suggest you avoid it if at all possible. In Miami, another report of significant road flooding occurring along Brickell Avenue. Several cars have stalled out in flooded waters. That's the other aspect to this. Not only is it dangerous, but in this economy, you don't want to be doing damage to your car. Your car is not meant to drive through flooded waters unless you have a snorkel on it, which most of us don't. In Miami Beach, across Alton Road, there's 6 to 12 inches of water flowing as well. Now, this is because of the rain you got on Tuesday, near constant rainfall on Wednesday. Near constant for areas of southeastern Florida, for Fort Lauderdale and for Miami, and also in the Keys, and it was windy too. Here's the estimated rainfall over the last 24 hours. There are some spots that saw over a foot. Closer to Fort Lauderdale and Miami, close to 5 to 8 inches of rainfall. That's just in a 24-hour period. And yes, Florida is well suited to deal with rain, but that is pushing it. So these flash flood warnings for Fort Lauderdale and Miami were extended into your Thursday morning. Elsewhere, we still have some flood watches in effect. Now, while the rain we're getting on Thursday may not be quite as bad, the ground saturated in southeastern Florida, there still could be some spots of heavy rain. So the flash flood threat for your Thursday, not as high as what we saw Wednesday, still likely in southeastern Florida and east central Florida. From Daytona Beach into Orlando, into Fort Pierce, into West Palm Beach, it's likely
were shut down and real harm to the American people. Bending over backwards to mollify the hard right, as speakers of the past have shown, will only create more gridlock and more chaos. So I hope that the new speaker continues to choose the bipartisan approach, as he commendably has in his first foray. Now, keeping the government is a good outcome, of course, but we have a lot more work to do after Thanksgiving. We must finish passing President Biden's emergency supplemental with aid to Israel, Ukraine, humanitarian assistance for innocent civilians in Gaza, and funds for the Indo-Pacific. We will keep working with Leader McConnell on a way forward. I know both sides genuinely care about approving aid to Israel and Ukraine and helping innocent civilians in Gaza. So I hope we can come to an agreement, even if neither side gets everything they insist on. But we will be working on it immediately when we get back after Thanksgiving. We will also complete our work on the National Defense Authorization Act. We're moving to go to conference right now, and we had very good agreements. The motions to instruct, some of the very bad ones that neither side liked, that one side didn't like or the other, have been eliminated, and the rest will be done by voice vote. So you won't have to hang around here for votes on the motions to instruct. That's how much we care about all of you. And we have to continue work on appropriations bills as well. So it's a very busy end of the year. We have the supplemental, the defense authorization bill, and the appropriations bills. And when you look at the struggles the House is having passing their partisan appropriation bills, it shows clearly what I've been saying all along. Bipartisan is the only way to get things done. For now, I want to thank my colleagues for voting to keep the government open. Leader McConnell, Chair Murray, Vice Chair Collins, and all the appropriators, we've all worked hard to get this very positive outcome. Again, no government shutdown, no cuts to vital programs, no poison pills. It's a great outcome for the American people. Questions? Yes?
About Tuberville's holds, you said soon that you might bring the resolution to the floor. Would after Thanksgiving be enough time?
Yes.
If there still isn't a solution by the time you come
Well,
back?
as you saw Leader McConnell's speech at the Rules Committee, it was a speech that basically, if you didn't see the last line, you'd think he was going to vote yes to bring the rule to the floor. But he wanted a little more time to persuade Tuberville to come up with a more amiable solution. So do some of our other colleagues. But we're going to have a vote on this, and we're going to have a vote on it soon. Yes?
I wondered if I could get your reaction to what we saw happening at the DNC this evening with protesters.
Yeah, I haven't really seen it because I've been so busy with keeping the government open and getting NDAA done. So I'll have to comment tomorrow. Yes?
Just to follow up on that, 6 U.S. Capitol Police officers
Okay.
were injured this evening.
I'm not going to comment till I see the details. Yes?
On the supplemental, is borders seeming like it's progressing? Is it feasible to keep that locked into that package with the rate?
Well, look, I would pass the package of the 4, Israel, humanitarian aid for Gaza, and the rest, and Ukraine, for Ukraine and for Indo-Pacific without border. Our Republican colleagues say they want to do it with border, so we're making every effort to try and come up with a compromise on border, but it has to be bipartisan. You cannot shove something, through and expect it to pass. Yes?
We're going to get this Ethics Committee report tomorrow on the House side about George Santos here. Obviously, the week spell is going to be a couple weeks away after Thanksgiving, but do you think it's proper, if this report is as bad as we think, that the House actually expel somebody who's not been convicted?
Look, I think Long Island deserves someone a whole lot better than George Santos, plain and simple. Yes?
On the border discussions, Senator Thune said yesterday they're not going well, and Tillis today said they're kind of at a standstill. What is your sense about, are they not going well?
It's difficult. The border is a difficult issue. We always know that. But I had a talk with several of the senators tonight, and they're continuing to pursue it. It's certainly not over, that's for sure. I'm not going to get into any of the details. Yes?
On appropriations, is there any effort by leadership to immediately begin negotiating the top lines that you need?
Yes. We really need to move forward. We need top lines, and there are efforts to negotiate them.
Among you?
Among the 4 leaders and the 4 appropriators corners. Yes.
Can you sort of give us a little sense of your confidence, and that the confidence that our allies in Kyiv and in Israel that this funding will ultimately get through the Congress?
Look,
because it just seems to be a ping pong delay after delay after delay.
well, it's a big, huge package. It's $100 billion. Obviously, the most immediate priority was keeping the government open. But now that that has been done, we will be able to focus fully on this package, and I am very hopeful we can get it done. It's needed. A majority of the House and the Senate support each piece of that package. And so I think, we have to figure out the best way to get it done, but I am very, very intent on getting it done. Thank you, everybody. Oh, this is something I put in the record, but I thought I'd read it here to you. This is the remarks on the retirement of Laura Little. Today, this is what I'm going to say in the record. Today, with a full heart of gratitude, I join the Senate in paying tribute to Laura Little, who's retiring today as Daily Press Media Gallery Director. Laura is precisely my kind of Senate staffer. It was through her good work that the press has been able for all these years to access the Senate and keep the American public informed of our work. Laura joined the Sergeant-at-Arms in May of 1994 as an intern in the press gallery, taking on special projects to help the fine-tuned machinery of the gallery function properly. Over the years, she worked her way up the ladder, became director of the Daily Press Media Gallery in June of 2013, 10 years ago. 10 years and a few months. It was Laura who was responsible for credentialing reporters for daily newspapers, wire services, online publications, and helped facilitate press interactions with members. Without Laura, the crucial bridge between this chamber and the public that the press creates would not have been possible. She's been the facilitator and gatekeeper. We're thankful for her service. So, Laura, we say to you, if you're watching, knowing you probably are, we wish you the very best on the next step in your journey. We'll miss you, and we want you to know you'll always have a home here in the Senate. Thank you, everybody. A happy Thanksgiving. I was born on Thanksgiving Day. It doesn't come out this year, a day later. But a happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Thank you.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer there making some remarks after the Senate members were able to pass that continuing resolution to keep the government funded and avoid that shutdown. And this was pretty quickly that they had a deadline of November 17th to pass an interim spending bill. Of course, it's still short term, but this bill that was just passed tonight by the Senate, it will keep the government open and funded until January of 2024. Next steps is that bill will be going to President Biden's desk for his signature. A live look out at Capitol Hill over in Washington, D.C. on this evening, approaching midnight over there on the East Coast. We want to step away for our third break. When we come back, we're going to touch on the conflict overseas between Israel and Hamas, still top of mind for so many people. And you did just hear Schumer mentioned that one of the biggest things they're going to be focusing on when finally passing a full funding bill is aid to Israel as it continues its war. We'll see you back here in 2 minutes. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Karel Lahada. As I mentioned before the break, I want to get now to the latest happening overseas, that conflict between Israel and Hamas only intensifying as the week goes on. Take a look at this video here that we're showing because some big news from earlier today is that Hamas has reportedly agreed to a deal to free dozens of hostages held in Gaza. According to the Washington Post, Hamas has agreed in principle to the release of at least 50 women and children from the roughly 240 foreign aid Israeli hostages being held captive. In exchange, Israel would agree to a 3 to 5 day pause in fighting, as well as increased humanitarian aid to Gaza, and the release of some women and children being held in Israeli prisons. The deal is not finalized. Israel is currently considering the proposal. Hamas had previously stated that it would keep Israeli military hostages, estimated in the dozens, possibly for use in separate exchanges for Palestinian militants held by Israelis. The hostages were taken back on October 7th when the militants first attacked Israel. Now, Israeli troops looking for traces of Hamas conducted a raid inside Gaza's largest hospital today. That's where thousands of Palestinians are believed to be sheltering. Hamas and Gaza health officials deny militants operate in the hospital. Meantime, Palestinians and rights groups say Israel recklessly endangered civilians. It is a big topic of conversation today. I do want to get to the latest in a breakdown from Fox News correspondent Alex Hogan. She has been on top of this story that we've been reporting on for over a month now since that war started on October 7th. Here's her report.
The Israeli military launching a targeted operation inside the Al-Shifa hospital, the building they believe is a Hamas stronghold.
There is no place in Gaza that we will not reach. I spoke again with President Joe Biden. We are not letting go. We will eliminate Hamas.
Going room by room, the IDF says it found weapons stashed in the MRI center, in one area, an operational command office, and in a main hallway.
These weapons have absolutely no business being inside a hospital. The only reason they're here is because Hamas put them here.
Israeli troops carried in much-needed medical equipment, but the World Health Organization argues entering the facility is totally unacceptable.
Hospitals are not battlegrounds. We're extremely worried for the safety of staff and patients.
The United Nations says 2 out of 3 people in Gaza are out of their homes. Hundreds of thousands of people are sleeping in shelters or on the streets, and now heavy rains are making everything that much worse. The IDF today took control of another Hamas base and blew up Hamas's parliamentary building in Gaza City after Israeli soldiers just a day ago raised the Israeli flag there. Hezbollah is ramping up attacks on Israel, firing at least 20 missiles and rockets on the north, where it's rare to have 10 seconds to get to a shelter when the sirens go off.
So right now on the screen, we're able to watch the skyline. We can hear the loud booms of artillery overhead.
In northern Israel, Alex Hogan, Fox News.
Thank you, Alex Hogan, for those compelling images that we're getting out of Israel. Meanwhile, Trey Yingst, another Fox News correspondent, also on top of the story. He has been in Israel on the ground since this war first broke out again more than a month ago. And he's getting a first-hand look at what Israeli troops are doing as they search these hospitals in Gaza. Take a look at this.
The raid of Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital is ongoing at this hour. Tonight, the Israeli military took us to the facility that serves as the front line of the war between Israel and Hamas. Nearly 3 weeks into the ground operation, we are with the Israeli military in the dark of night, headed into the heart of Gaza City. The Israelis have been fighting block by block and street by street against Hamas. They recently gained control of the Al-Shati camp and the Al-Shifa hospital.
Stay with us.
You can hear the Israelis are engaged in gun battles here with Hamas. Right now we're in Gaza's Al-Shifa hospital. It was raided overnight by Israeli forces who were looking for Hamas infrastructure and weapons. They are still searching at this hour for the tunnels that they say are beneath the hospital, but they did recover weapons they say belong to Hamas in an MRI room here on one side of the facility. And when you look behind the machine, you see the weapons and ammunition the Israelis say Hamas had ready to go so that they could continue engaging Israeli forces in the heart of Gaza City.
What we have here is professional Hamas literature, all of it with the official insignia of Hamas. And we have here really a mix of tactical brochures for commanders, how to attack a tank, and what type of ammunition to use in what kind of situation.
The Israelis did not show us any of the tunnels they claim are beneath the hospital. They did, however, show us weapons in the radiology department. I pressed the Israeli military about the criticism they faced regarding the raid of a medical facility We'll have more of their answers tomorrow. In southern Israel, Trey Yingst, Fox News.
And we'll be looking out for the IDF's response to that overwhelming amount of criticism, as Trey Yingst did just tell us in his report. Those were the final remarks from him. And the situation, of course, dire over there in Gaza. Right now, doctors are saying that they were forced to move premature babies from those hospitals that are severely lacking resources. Take a look at some of this footage from on the ground there. So here you see doctors holding premature babies in their hands. This video released by the Hamas-controlled Gaza Health Ministry. The babies were being moved to a different ward in Gaza's Shifa hospital after their incubators stopped working due to a lack of electricity. The babies are among the patients still left in the region's largest hospital. This comes as Israel forces continue their raid into the large Al-Shifa compound. The Israeli army claims Hamas militants are using hospitals as cover for its fighters and that they have set up their main command center in and beneath the hospital. Israel facing harsh criticisms from so many international organizations, including the United Nations and the World Health Organization. We're going to have more on the resolution that was just passed by the UN Security Council earlier today regarding those humanitarian pauses in Gaza. But right now we do have to step away for our last break of the hour. When we come back, I want to get to the other big story of the day, and that was President Biden's meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. You're taking a look here at a playback from remarks from the Chinese president. There is an English translation. We're going to play these remarks in full when Live Now from Fox returns. Welcome back to Live Now from Fox. We're approaching the top of the hour here in the U.S. on the West Coast, 9 p.m. and over on the East Coast just before midnight. I'm your host, Karel Lahara. I want to get to the biggest story of the day today, President Biden meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Here is a tweet from the president in his account on X. Earlier today, he says, "I've concluded a day of meetings with President Xi, and I believe they were some of the most constructive and productive discussions we've had. We built on groundwork laid over the past several months of diplomacy between our countries and made important progress." Biden and Xi reached agreements on several key areas that included curbing the production of illicit fentanyl and resuming military-to-military communications. That's according to a senior Biden administration official. Now, when it comes to China, the most important issues Between these talks between Xi and Biden were Taiwan and the U.S. sanctions and restrictions against Chinese products and businesses. That's according to a statement released by the China Central Television station, that state's broadcaster. Xi urging the U.S. to stop arming Taiwan, but support China's peaceful unification with the self-governed island. Xi stressed the importance of the Taiwan issue, calling it, quote, the most important and most sensitive issue in the bilateral relations. Now, before the break, I showed you a little clip of the Chinese president. We did get the English translation as he made some remarks after that meeting with Biden. I want to play those in full for you next.
包括增加中美客运直航航班，举办中美旅游高层对话。
High-level dialogue on tourism and streamlining visa application procedures. We hope that our two peoples will make more visits, contacts, and exchanges, and write new stories of friendship in the new era. I also hope that California and San Francisco will continue to take the lead on the journey of growing China-U.S. friendship. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, we are in an era of challenges and changes. It is also an era of hope. The world needs China and the United States to work together for a better future. We, the largest developing country, that is China, and the largest developed country, the United States, we must get along with each other. In a world of changes and chaos, it is ever more important for us to have the mind, assume the vision, shoulder the responsibility, and play the role that comes along with our status as major countries. I've always had one question on my mind: how to steer the giant ship of China-U.S. relations clear of hidden rocks and shores, navigate it through storms and waves without getting disoriented, losing speed, or even having a collision. In this respect, the number one question for us is, are we adversaries or partners? This is the fundamental and overarching issue. The logic is quite simple. If one sees the other side as a primary competitor, the most consequential geopolitical challenge, and a pacing threat, it will only lead to misinformed policymaking, misguided actions, and unwanted results. China is ready to be a partner and friend of the United States. The fundamental principles that we follow in handling China-U.S. relations are mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation. Just as mutual respect is a basic code of behavior for individuals, it is fundamental for China-U.S. relations. The United States is unique in its history, culture, and geographical position, which have shaped its distinct development path and social system. We fully respect all this. The path of socialism with Chinese characteristics has been found under the guidance of the theory of scientific socialism and is rooted in the tradition of the Chinese civilization with an uninterrupted history of more than 5,000 years. We are proud of our choice, just as you are proud of yours. Our paths are different, but both are the choice by our peoples, and both lead to the realization of the common values of humanity. They should be both respected. Peaceful coexistence is a basic norm for international relations, and is even more of a baseline that China and the United States should hold on to as two major countries. It is wrong to view China, which is committed to peaceful development, as a threat, and thus play a zero-sum game against it. China never bets against the United States and never interferes in its internal affairs. China has no intention to challenge the United States or to unseat it. Instead, we will be glad to see a confident, open, ever-growing, and prosperous United States. Likewise, the United States should not bet against China or interfere in China's internal affairs. It should instead welcome a peaceful, stable, and prosperous China. Win-win cooperation is the trend of the times, and it is also an inherent property of China-US relations. China is pursuing high-quality development, and the United States is revitalizing its economy. There is plenty of room for our cooperation, and we are fully able to help each other succeed and achieve win-win outcomes. The Belt and Road Initiative, as well as the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative proposed by China, are open to all countries at all times, including the United States. China is also ready to participate in U.S. proposed multilateral cooperation initiatives. This morning, President Biden and I agreed to promote dialogue and cooperation in the spirit of mutual respect in areas including diplomacy, economy and trade, people-to-people exchange, education, science and technology, agriculture, military, law enforcement, and artificial intelligence. We agreed to make the cooperation list longer and the pile of cooperation bigger. Just now, Secretary Raimondo mentioned the issue of fentanyl. I would like to let you know that China sympathizes deeply with the American people, especially the young, for the sufferings that fentanyl has inflicted upon them. President Biden and I have agreed to set up a working group on counter-narcotics to further our cooperation and help the United States tackle drug abuse. I also wish to announce here that to increase exchanges between our peoples, especially between the youth, China is ready to invite 50,000 young Americans to China on exchange and study programs in the next 5 years. Recently, the 3 pandas at the Smithsonian's National Zoo in Washington have returned to China. I was told that many American people, especially children, were really reluctant to say goodbye to the pandas and went to the zoo to see them off. I also learned that the San Diego Zoo and the Californians very much look forward to welcoming pandas back. Pandas have long been envoys of friendship between the Chinese and American peoples. We are ready to continue our cooperation with the United States on panda conservation and do our best to meet the wishes of the Californians so as to deepen friendly ties between our peoples. Ladies and gentlemen, friends, China is the largest developing country in the world. The Chinese people long for better jobs, better lives, and better education for their children. This is what the 1.4 billion Chinese hold dear to their hearts. The Communist Party of China, CPC, is committed to working for the people, and our people's expectation for a better life is our goal. This means we must work hard to secure their support. Thanks to a century of exploration and struggle, we have found the development path that suits us. We are now advancing the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation on all fronts by pursuing Chinese modernization. We are committed to striving in unity to achieve modernization for all Chinese. A large population is a fundamental aspect of China's reality. But now, we have to give the crown of the biggest population in the world to India. China is now home to the second largest population. So for China, our achievements, however great, would be very small when divided by 1.4 billion. But the problem, however small, would be huge when multiplied by 1.4 billion. This is a unique challenge for a country of our size. In the meantime, big also means strength. The leadership of the CPC, the system of socialism with Chinese characteristics, and the endorsement and support of the people are our greatest strength. China is both a super large economy and a super large market. Not long ago, the 6th China International Import Expo was held. It attracted over 3,400 business exhibitors from 128 countries, including the United States. The exhibition area of American companies have been the largest for 6 consecutive years. Modernization for 1.4 billion Chinese is a huge opportunity that China provides to the world. We are committed to prosperity for all, to deliver a better life to each and every Chinese. To eliminate poverty is the millennia-old dream of the Chinese nation. And prosperity for all is the longing of all Chinese. Before I turned 16, I was in a village in northern Shanxi province, where I lived and farmed with the villagers. I spent 7 years there, and I knew about their worries and needs. Now, half a century on, I always feel confident and strong when staying with the people.
We're listening here to some remarks made by Chinese President Xi Jinping after he met with President Joe Biden. This was earlier today in San Francisco, California. Now, it has been an all-day event. We have been taking you to it as it's been happening live. The latest that we did see is President Biden joined by other officials, including the Vice President and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden, speaking at the APEC Summit dinner. We want to step away for a quick break here at Live Now from Fox. When we come back, I'm going to get to the remainder of Xi Jinping's remarks after that meeting with President Biden. It was the first one that they've had in over a year where they were both face to face. A live look out in Washington, D.C., out of the Capitol building. Late at night, we are past midnight over there on the East Coast and just past 9 p.m. over on the West Coast. We'll see you back here in 2 minutes.
That could lead to a little bit of snow. For Wednesday into Thursday, next Wednesday into Thursday, as in the day before Thanksgiving and Thanksgiving Day, we are expecting some chances for some wet weather across the eastern seaboard. So Saturday, we start out west with some chances for some rain. As we get into Sunday, rain and snow across the plains and areas of the Rockies. Going into Monday, the plains of Mississippi Valley, Ohio River Valley, you've got some rain as well. Tuesday next week, East Coast getting in on some wet weather. As we jump to Wednesday, just the day before Thanksgiving, you can see Syracuse 44 chance for rain New York, you have that chance. New England, you've got the chance for some rain. Lake effect snow is a possibility. Western Pennsylvania, western New York State as well. The big day on Thanksgiving Day, though, yes, there may be some lake effect snow all across the Great Lakes, whether that's Northeast Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Michigan, Wisconsin, maybe even all the way into Minnesota there. Maine, you've got a chance for some snow. Generally speaking, though, the Southeast for Thanksgiving Day, cool and dry. Desert Southwest, Central Southern Plains, warm and dry. Some rain expected in the Pacific Northwest. Elsewhere in the Northwest, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, you do have a chance for some snow. It's still a while out, so make sure you stay tuned to these forecasts here. But for Thanksgiving Day itself, New York 40s, Raleigh 50s, Atlanta 50s, Houston 67, Oklahoma City cloudy 60, Billings, you've got a chance for some snow. Your high is going to be well below freezing, so that should be a lighter and fluffier snow. Portland, a chance for some rain. You're right near 50 degrees. Los Angeles 69 cloudy, Tucson 77, and I may mention this, but Houston upper 60s. Could be a little bit of turbulence this upcoming weekend if you are going to be flying, by the way, so keep that in mind. Whatever you take to deal with air sickness, I would make sure you've got it ready to go. So Saturday we could have some travel slowdowns across the West Coast. Sunday we could have some travel problems in the Rockies and in the Southern Plains as well. Monday, that just continues to transfer on farther off to the east. We'll be covering this over the next couple of days, of course. Now, California is getting in on a lot of rain. I'll be telling you about that coming up.
Stay tuned to get this ultra nonstick bakeware set and these razor-sharp chef's knives free from Granite Stone. Has your old set of pans lost their slick? Does everything get baked on, burnt on, and stick? You know you need a new set, but the prices are so high it's obscene. Well, say hello to Granite Stone Emerald Green, a kitchen full of the most durable ultra nonstick cookware at the most affordable price anywhere. Granite Stone Emerald Green is the fast, easy way to make your family 5-star cuisine that's delicious and lean. No oil or butter needed. Granite Stone Emerald Green is constructed from a hard aluminum plate and coated 3 times with our durable ultra non-stick Granite Stone Emerald Green finish. They're oven rated up to 500 degrees and come with vented tempered glass lids to prevent boil-over. Plus, all Granite Stone cookware is 100% metal utensil and dishwasher safe. Look, you'd expect to pay up to $500 for a professional quality cookware set. But during this special TV introduction, you can get the complete Granite Stone Emerald Green set not for $5, $4, or even $300, but for the factory direct price of just 5 easy payments of $39.99. And for everyone who orders today, we're going to drop 1 payment. You get it all for just 4 easy payments of $39.99. And here's the offer you've been waiting for. We'll include this razor-sharp 6-piece knife set to prep quick, and they're all non-stick, free. But there's even more. You'll get our 5-piece bakeware set, the fast, easy, ultra non-stick way to bake up your favorite desserts. Together, they're an $80 value. Yours absolutely free. That's an incredible 21-piece Granite Stone Emerald Green set, all for just 4 easy payments of $39.99. Plus, we'll ship your entire order.
Spoiler in anything. I've never tried to. I compete the best I possibly can. I compete to win. And I'm going to work right now to try to win the middle back.
Senator, do you think that Joe Biden is not a moderate Democrat?
His actions today could not be considered moderate. Do I think he came as a moderate? Yes. The Joe Biden I knew in the past was always more in the center. But what happened is it got pulled clear to the left. This is in my eyes only. But I still try to work with everybody I can. And I've said this, you should want your president to succeed. You should help them succeed. And I would like to see him on some of these executive orders come back to what's more mainstream, not just playing to the base. That's the difference we have.
If it comes down to it, will you vote for Trump or Biden?
I think that's it's a hypothetical question, thinking, not knowing what we're going to have and who we're going to have. To make a choice right now, okay, let me just say I could not vote for Donald Trump.
But you're not convinced you could vote for Joe Biden?
Well, I want President Biden. I would hope the changes would come. I would hope for that.
Are you considering leaving the Democratic Party?
I'm not sure if the Democratic Party thinks I'm part of them anyway.
New economic data out this morning. Wholesale prices fell 0.5% last month, signaling a possible ease in inflation. A major factor in the drop in the producer price index was energy. There was a more than 15% decline in gas prices. So joining me now is Greg Robb. He's a senior reporter and economics editor for Market Watch. So thanks for joining us. It looks like all things are pointing in the right direction. Each report we get out suggests a slowing of inflation. Help us break down what the numbers mean.
Well, the big headline for the numbers over the last 2 days that we've gotten on inflation is that this idea that the economy can have a soft landing is alive and well. And that's really good news. And that's why the stock market is reacting. It means that inflation can come down without the Federal Reserve really having to slam the brakes on the economy and kind of stop growth. So that it looks like we can, kind of maybe avoid a recession.
Mm-hmm. So this report talks about what the producers are paying, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that they pass it on to the consumers, especially if they think the consumers are willing to pay more. We're heading into the holiday season. Could that have an impact on the way inflation looks, say, a month from now?
I don't think so. I think holiday sales are kind of a different kettle of fish. I think it's going to be hard for retailers, especially big box retailers, this season because the cost of living has gone up for so many Americans, and Americans are having to cut back. At the same time, though, they do want to spend on, presents for people, it seems, coming out of the pandemic. So what they're going to buy and what they're not going to buy, I think it's going to be a real headache for big box retailers. Mm-hmm. So, but I don't think it'll boost inflation. That's kind of that's a thing about how strong the consumer is, which is another thing that the Fed is looking at and everyone is looking at.
Right. Well, we had the consumer price index come out yesterday, and you mentioned that stock market was really liking what they saw there. Investors were. JP Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon said yesterday that he's afraid that inflation may not go away that quickly and that investors may have been overreacting to the CPI. Is it too early to tell where inflation is headed? 'Cause to me, it seems to be very slowly heading in the right direction, not quick.
Yosemite, you could be seeing a similar amount. So definitely not your worst snowstorm by any means at all whatsoever, but still an additional snow through Sunday could still cause some slowdowns on the roads there in the mountain passage, I should say. This is very typical for you this time of year. If you don't live in California and you're unaware, Truckee, your average first snow is way back on October 30th. South Lake Tahoe, November 11th. We're past that too. Mammoth Lakes, October 26th. So we are well past when we typically see the first snows of the season. And that's not the first snow of the season, by the way, in the Sierra Nevada. This is just additional snow. Speaking of snow, there's a lot of it in Alaska. And I know what you're thinking. Well, yeah, Kelly, I think we all know that. Even though we've never been there, a lot of people know there's a lot of snow in Alaska. But even by their standards, this is a lot of snow. Take a look at this. November snow total so far. And keep in mind, we're only halfway through the month here, 37.9 inches. So halfway through the month, we're already at the second snowiest November on record. That first one was just 38.8 inches. Barely above what we're seeing now, so likely going to end up above that. That was all the way back in 1994. All the way back in 1994. And there were a lot of spots that saw a lot more than what Anchorage saw. Look at Thompson Pass. This is a mountain pass, yes, but 65 inches of snow, that's 5.5 feet. That's about here on my head. That's a lot of snowfall. Thompson Pass, elsewhere, 4 feet of snowfall. Girdwood, 36 inches of snowfall. That's 3 feet. Anchorage, you got 30 inches. And we're not even done, folks. We've got an additional, it obviously is very elevation dependent. Some of the mountains could pick up an additional a couple feet of snow. Elsewhere, we're just talking about a couple of inches. But wow, again, even by Alaska standards and Anchorage's standards, that's still a lot of snowfall, which is typical this time of year, but maybe not that much in such a short period of time. Okay, we do want to give you an update coming out of Iceland. Now, the Icelandic Meteorological Office says that the recent size and the intensity of the earthquakes and seismic activity is decreasing. So they're seeing smaller earthquakes relatively, and the intensity of the earthquakes going down compared to what we saw over the past weekend. Now, this past weekend, the meteorological office said that they're preparing for a volcanic eruption in the southwest region of the island in the coming days after the series of much stronger earthquakes and evidence of magma spreading rapidly underground. They said there is a considerable risk for an eruption on or just off the Reykjanes Peninsula. They still have that chance. It has not happened yet, though. I will say that. Now, state media reports that some of the residents of the fishing town of Grindavik have been allowed back in, not permanently. This is after they were evacuated a couple days ago, but just in with police escorts to get some valuables. So they're allowed into their homes to retrieve some valuables, but they're getting kicked right back out. They cannot stay in their homes. So therefore, there's still that risk for volcanic eruption. So the town has a population of around 3,000 people. Obviously, awful situation what's ongoing there. They're awaiting this potential volcanic eruption. You can see there's already devastating effects from the series of earthquakes. I'm happy the seismic activity is starting to diminish quite a bit, but there's still that risk for a volcanic eruption. Not the kind that would spew ash into the atmosphere and could cripple international airline travel, but this is going to be more of a lava flow situation if this eruption does happen. Just bringing you back to the beginning in case you missed it, the first of the intense earthquakes were detected north of Grindavik on October 25. The reason we specify the intense earthquakes is because, well, earthquakes actually happen all the time. It's just the vast majority of them are very, very weak. Most people, even animals, can't even feel them. But October 25th through November 10th, there were more than 22,000 earthquakes. And it was on November 10th that Grindavik evacuations began and there was a state of emergency declared. And now we still have that significant likelihood of that volcanic eruption in the coming days. Just over the last 48 hours, still a large number, but remember, they did say the seismic activity is weakening and diminishing quite a bit. The intensity and the size of the seismic activity overall is decreasing, which is certainly good news for them. If that volcanic eruption happens, of course, we will certainly let you know. Okay, time for the Fox weather flashback. We're going to go back to the 1989 Huntsville, Alabama tornado. This was on November 15th in 1989. A violent F4 tornado carved an 18.5-mile path through Huntsville, Alabama. The twister devastated heavily populated areas on the southern side of the city. The tornado killed 21 people and injured 463 people. Many victims were trapped in their cars on congested highways. 640 homes, businesses, and churches were damaged or destroyed. The twister formed and moved into a densely built-up area in southern Huntsville, Alabama, and within a matter of just a couple of minutes, this supercell had turned the sky dark. That made escaping difficult for motorists and residents trapped in the tornado's path. 19 of the 21 deaths occurred in a 1-mile stretch of road near the tornado's first contact with the ground. 37 children in an elementary school were saved despite the destruction of their school due to the brave actions of teachers and other adults. Teachers directed the children into a safe location under a stairwell on the school's first floor, and workmen in the school ran to the children and shielded them from some of the debris as the tornado struck the school. Just a reminder, that's actually the perfect place to be during a tornado. You want to get to that first floor of your home. You want to get away from any windows underneath the stairwell. That tends to, of course, stairwells, a lot of stairwells anyway, don't have windows. Very sturdy area. Definitely a really good spot to put those children. No doubt many, many lives were saved that day. So again, that was Huntsville back on November 15th of 1989. Okay, let's talk about the next 7. Still have some chances for rain in Florida on Thursday. Be careful, especially for that morning commute. Not a good situation unfolding there for Fort Lauderdale and also into Miami. More chances for rain in California on Thursday, although it's going to be a little bit more isolated. Rest of the country actually pretty nice. New York, bright 63. Chicago, cloudy 67 for your Thursday. Kansas City, 68. Dallas, near 70. El Paso, mid-70s. Seattle, a little bit cooler, into the upper 40s. Friday, next storm system. I shouldn't even call it a storm. Most of this is just going to be rain, but that's setting up across the East Coast. There is going to be a bit of wind with this, though, so maybe some people would consider that storminess across the East Coast and the Northeast. Get ready for that. I would rather you go with a raincoat rather than an umbrella, considering it could be a bit breezy on Friday. Keep that in mind. Umbrellas versus wind, you're not going to win that. Bismarck bright 51, Denver bright 63, Kansas City you're at 55. Take a look at Saturday. Still have some lingering rain in areas of the Northeast. On the West Coast, you've got some chances for rain as well. Rest of the country is looking rather quiet. Sunday, we've got our next storm system setting up for spots of the Rockies. This is going to be the form of some snow. Elsewhere in the plains, some chances for some rain. And then look as we get into Monday. Pretty widespread rain actually across the plains, Mississippi Valley, Ohio River Valley. That does start impacting the Northeast as we get into your Tuesday. So New York, Chicago, all the way down into Atlanta for next Tuesday, you still have some chances for rain. So keep that in mind if you're traveling that day, whether it's on the roads, whether it's in the sky. That could lead to some delays regardless. Seattle, 50 degrees, chance for some rain for next Tuesday, the day before Thanksgiving. This is more than a week out, so I really want you to take this with a grain of salt. Make sure you stay tuned in. The Northeast, a lot of Northeast is looking a little bit dry. Some forecast models, though, hinting at a chance for some lake-enhanced, lake effect snow and some rain across areas of the Northeast. We'll have a much better idea of this as we get over the next couple of days. It's really too early to set that in stone. And speaking of, we know that the day after that is going to be Thanksgiving, so I'll be telling you about what we're expecting for the Thanksgiving Day forecast and overall what we're expecting for Thanksgiving travel both this week and next week, and also giving you an update on the risk for some flash flooding across areas of Florida and for California. We'll have an update coming up. Keep it here.
Back to go towards peace.
But now this seems to be all about politics. What do you say about that? You know, you have innocent children in Palestinians who are dying, innocent Israeli children who are dying. And no one seems to be able to say, enough, stop that.
I'm not interested in politics at all. My only concern is getting Emily back, whatever that takes to get her back.
Well, thank you for being here, Thomas, for keeping her name in our minds and the attention focused as it should be on their release. I can't imagine what you're going through. I can barely talk to you because I think about my own daughter and I think about...
No, it's a living nightmare. It's hell. Hell on earth.
Are you sleeping? How are you standing and walking and communicating with us?
I have a couple of pints of beer before I go to bed. And yeah, I sleep. I don't eat much. My throat is closed. I can't eat.
And
the beer, a couple of beers helps me sleep. Otherwise, I'd be up all night going through all the nightmares that you don't want to imagine.
Yes, tell the world her name, Thomas.
Emily.
Emily what?
Emily Hand. Emily Korenberg Hand.
There you go. All right. Emily Korenberg Hand. Thank you so much. I hope Friday we get news. I hope we get news. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we're hoping for that miracle.
We're all hoping for a miracle, and I believe in.
It's the annual enrollment period for Medicare Advantage plans, and you have a choice, which is why Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield is here to help you get
Right now in Fox weather, unfortunately, a pretty awful flood situation unfolding all across southeastern Florida. Some of the flash flood warnings near Fort Lauderdale and Miami have been extended into your Thursday morning. We're also talking Thanksgiving travel both this week and next week. Unfortunately, some of us somewhere are getting problems this week and next week. I'll be talking about those weather woes. And we're looking at a wet west. It's been a little bit wet over the last couple of days across areas of California. And I'm just letting you know, while Thursday is going to be a bit more isolated, you are expecting more rain, potential a little bit of snow in some spots of the Sierra Nevada getting into your Friday. Welcome to Fox Weather, everyone. I'm Kelly Costa.
The bill now goes to the Senate, where it is also expected to pass.
And then the president is expected to sign it. The bill passed in the House by a vote of 336 to 95, with 93 Republicans voting against it. That's more GOP no votes than the last government funding bill in September, which you may recall led to Kevin McCarthy's demise as House Speaker. His successor, Mike Johnson, was pressed by reporters on those defections after yesterday's vote.
Your first big bill, sir, how does it feel?
We just had to get the job done. We'll do it day by day.
Any concern about the number of Republican defections there were?
We'll get our team together and run the agenda. We're ready to do that.
How do you get your team together from here?
You'll see.
NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin joins us with the latest here. Hey, Johnson, get the support needed to pass this funding bill.
Well, guys, the day started off with a statement from the House Freedom Caucus, the conservative wing among House Republicans, and they said flat out they're not supporting this bill. But as the day went on, we started to hear more and more from Democrats, Democratic leadership saying this bill is not perfect. They thought the process was too weird. System that Speaker Johnson set up was complicated and unnecessarily so. But regardless, they said that their members would support this bill. And sure enough, they did. Just 2 Democrats ended up voting against this continuing resolution in the House. Speaker Mike Johnson
track with our debt.
Quickly, not only did Democrats end up overwhelmingly saving this bill in the end, but this really didn't even go through the regular process either. It didn't pass in the Rules Committee, the first procedural hurdle on Monday. That's why it had to pass under so-called suspension, meaning 2/3 of the House actually had to vote for it in order for it to pass.
So you mentioned Democrats saving it. Has he now put himself at odds with members of his own party?
Yeah, well, that's the big question now. I mean, this is virtually the same thing that ousted Speaker Kevin McCarthy went through just a couple of months ago. Even here, you actually had less Republicans supporting this bill than they did in McCarthy's version. But Johnson still seems to be in this honeymoon period. And when you look at what this bill actually does, he's saying that this will force Senate Democrats not to pass this massive spending package at the end of the year, will force them to work harder because it is staggered in these 2 tiers. You have some government agencies funded until January 19th. Others running out of money in the beginning of February. This means we have 2 potential shutdowns in our future. So this is going to mean that both sides, House and Senate, Republicans and Democrats, are going to have to work really hard to prevent that from happening. Senator John Thune, who's the number 2 Senate Republican, actually said that this is going to be in the same position in January and February that they are now. So they really have a lot of work to do. Again, Ukraine, Israel, border security funding, none of that is in this bill. All of that is going to have to get done after.
Julie, very quickly, let's talk about this bill that did pass. It's been called this laddered approach. How exactly is it going to work over the next couple months?
Yeah, well, you just heard me talking about it a little bit, Joe. You have these staggered deadlines in January and February. You see that on your screen. It doesn't have any of the national security priorities, especially that President Biden had wanted. And I'll tell you, Senate Republicans also wanted to keep that link. They are working right now on some border provisions. It remains to be seen whether that will be enough for House Republicans. On the Senate part, though, Joe, they do say they're going to try to pass this bill by the end of this week. Senate Majority Leader Schumer had said the bottom line is why they're supporting it, because there are no budget cuts, and that was really a red line for Democrats.
All right, Julie, thank you so much. Welcome back. Closing arguments are set to begin this morning in the trial of the man who attacked Paul Pelosi.
The defense wrapped its case yesterday with David DePape taking the stand to testify in his own defense. Getting emotional at times, DePape gave a rambling explanation for the attack. He spoke about his grievances and told jurors that he spent 6 hours a day on YouTube looking for political commentary. And he said he regrets the attack because he felt he and Paul Pelosi had, quote, a good rapport. The defense said he never meant to hurt Nancy Pelosi or her husband. DePape's lawyers have already admitted that their client broke into the Pelosi home and hit Paul Pelosi with a hammer, but they argue the charges do not fit. DePape has pleaded not guilty to attempted kidnapping of a federal official and assault on the immediate family member of a federal official.
NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalas joins us now on this. Danny, good morning. So let's just start with your reaction to all this and the fact that he did take the stand himself. Did that surprise you at all?
Only two possibilities. Either the defense thought this was so hopeless they might as well put their client on the stand and see what happens, or the client himself insisted on taking the stand, and he has a constitutional right to do so. You take a step back, and you have similar questions as to why even take this case to trial. Well, really two possibilities. Either the government made no offer for a plea deal, or the plea deal was just not that appetizing, or, again, the client has a constitutional right to proceed to trial. So those are really only the two viable possibilities, because this case is a really, really difficult case for the defense. In fact, their best chance, and why they've already conceded that he was in the house and that he hit Paul Pelosi with a hammer, is because of the federal element. This is not a run-of-the-mill assault case. It's assault plus the specific intent to either intimidate or something to do with a federal official. That's why it's in federal court. Normally, these kinds of cases are handled in state court.
Let's talk about the testimony. DePape was on the stand for about an hour. He swore, he cried. What stood out to you?
Really, what stands out to me is it goes back to the question of why put him on the stand. And it could be the rambling nature the defense thinks may help them with a jury to say, look, this is clearly someone who's disturbed. And then you may see them argue in the end that, look at our client. He was so disturbed on the stand. How could he have formulated the specific intent to violate these federal laws? Again, that may not be an effective argument, but sometimes you do what you can. The defense does not get to pick the facts. The prosecution does. The defense can only do the best they can with the case they have.
So we mentioned that his team's arguing that the charges don't fit, not that he didn't do it like you'd said. Because the attack wasn't motivated by Nancy Pelosi's position in Congress, what do you make of that?
Yeah, they're essentially saying this case belongs in state court, not federal court. I mean, they've all but admitted a crime in ordinary state court, which would be an ordinary assault, an ordinary burglary. However, kidnapping can be a federal crime because of the interstate nexus. But all the same, they're saying that, look, this specific crime in federal court requires a very specific intent beyond just assaulting someone. It has to be for the motive, the purpose of intimidating a federal official. And they're going to argue the government simply hasn't made that burden. It's more than is usually required, and they haven't done it. It's a long shot. It's probably not going to work. In all likelihood, you can bet on a conviction in this case.
What will be the prosecution's main argument in closing statements?
The main argument is they'll probably trot out the same body cam video and the other avalanche of evidence they have that the defendant was in the house, did attack Paul Pelosi, and trot out the statements that he gave. All of that together, they're going to say, look, he may not have explicitly said it was for the purpose of intimidating a federal official, but ladies and gentlemen, you got everything else you need. Return the correct verdict, which is one of guilty. And I think they will.
All right, Danny Savalas, thanks as always.
Rockies, rain across the plains. For Monday of next week, rain in the plains, rain in the Mississippi Valley, rain in the Ohio River Valley, rain in the southeast. Tuesday, rain across the East Coast. If you're traveling, that could lead to some issues on the roads and in the skies. Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving, chance for some lake-enhanced rain and snow. And in New England, chances for some rain. So that's Wednesday. That's before Thanksgiving. Here's the Thanksgiving forecast. I know it looks dry around the Great Lakes, but again, this is a week out. Some forecast models are suggesting we could see a little bit of lake effect snow. So we're going to have to wait and see. New York, though, trending drier, upper 40s for Thanksgiving Day. Raleigh 57, Atlanta 57, Houston 67 and sunny. Chance for some snow across Montana, in Wyoming, in Idaho. A little bit wetter across the Pacific Northwest. Portland and Seattle, you do have that chance. So it's typical for New York City. Well, the warmest Thanksgiving Day in New York City was actually 66 degrees back in 2007. Your coldest was only 26, set back in 1901, and your rainiest was 1.72 inches. That was back in 2006. So this week, next week, New York City, you do have some chances for rain Tuesday and Wednesday. You are trending drier for Thursday for Thanksgiving Day. Chicago, your warmest Thanksgiving, 69. Your coldest was 14 degrees. And that's not your coldest low, that's your coldest high. That was set way back in 1930. Your snowiest was 3 inches on Thanksgiving Day back in 1980. Next week, it looks like Chicago, drier for Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, 39. Again, I want you to stay tuned to this because there is a risk for some lake effect snow for some areas of the Great Lakes. This is really, really far in advance, so that's why I'm telling you to stay tuned. Denver, 73 is your warmest Thanksgiving. Coldest is -1. Ugh, that's pretty brutal. Thursday, you're trending into the upper 40s and looking a little bit drier. But again, I really want to make sure that I make it clear that this is still far in advance. And we'll have a better idea as we get in. Rain and snow to talk about in areas of California. I'll be timing that out for you and showing you how much with an update in a couple minutes. Keep it here.
Stay.
Overnight, cloudy, low 50. Winds east-northeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Thursday, sunshine and clouds mixed. High 70. Winds east at 10 to 15 miles per hour.
Chances of success are 20 to 1.
Never tell me the odds.
Odds are this is going to be music to the ears of Stranger Things fans. You might start seeing the familiar faces of the cast of the hit Netflix show Around Town. David Harbour, who plays Sheriff Jim Hopper, says now that the actors' strike is over, the cast and crew are heading back to filming.
We deserve to celebrate, right?
Absolutely. The 5th and final season of the series was set to begin shooting in Atlanta last June, but the writer's strike and then the actor's strike put that on hold. Even with shooting starting now, it may take up to a year for the Duffer Brothers to finish production. That means season 5 may not stream until 2025, a full decade after the series first launched. That might seem like a long wait, but hey, it'll be worth it. Trust me.
Okay, seriously? How many times do I have to be right on the money before you guys just trust me?
Jesus Christ, this kid's got to get his ego in check.
Welcome back to Fox Weather, everyone. I'm Kelly Costa. Let's take it out to the West Coast and talk about the rain. Now, California's gotten a lot recently. You're expecting just a couple isolated ones on Thursday, a bit more widespread showers as we go into your Friday. But I do want to show you that some spots of California, even though a lot of you think it's just good weather all the time, they actually do have a wet season. San Francisco, here's your monthly rainfall. Now, don't get me wrong, you're pretty bone dry from June to September. I mean, even into October, you average less than an inch. November is when it starts to increase more for San Francisco, and then it really ramps up into December, January, February, and into March. So we're getting there. San Francisco, chance for some spotty showers on Thursday, a bit more widespread showers as we get into your Friday, into Saturday for San Francisco. So make sure you've got the rain gear ready to go. I talked about this so far this week, but just to reiterate in case you missed it, it's the same storm system that you're getting. The problem is it just can't really move on until later this week going to the weekend. And that's because in the short term, it's being physically blocked by this area of high pressure that is to the north and to the west of it. So in the meantime, it's kind of just meandering. And it's just continuing to produce these spotty showers. So Thursday, 9 a.m., I will say it's pretty isolated. A better push of moisture as we go into your Friday, especially Friday evening. You can see that across coastal areas of California, Sacramento, San Francisco, Fresno, for example. But look at Saturday. You're getting another round of some snow for areas of the Sierra Nevada. Spotty showers all across California. That continues into Saturday afternoon. And then you see a drying trend again Saturday night into Sunday morning. So here's the rainfall still to come. Right along the coastline, 1 to 2 inches. Could be some isolated amounts up to 2 to 3. That could lead to a couple more issues, so just be careful driving around. But overall, a relatively slow start to the wet season, which is good. You don't want too much at one time. Snowfall forecast. Now for the Sierra Nevada, this is mere flakes for what you're used to. But it's definitely enough to create some nuisance type weather for what you're used to. Mammoth Lakes, you could pick up 1 foot to 1.5 feet. Sequoia National Forest, just a couple of inches. Obviously, it's very, very elevation dependent. But overall, the highest peaks could pick up between 1 foot to 2 feet. Now, this is not the first snow of the season for the Sierra Nevada, but I do want to show you when the average for snow actually is. Just in case you're not familiar with the Sierra Nevada, it's a very, very snowy area. For Truckee and Mammoth Lakes, your average for snow is closer to October. So that's way in the rear view mirror. All right, Fox Weather, this is Hurricane HQ. Still have potential disturbance number 2 and disturbance number 1. Not really concerned about potential disturbance number 2. The chance is incredibly low for this to develop. It's that area that could turn into that coastal low for areas up the northeast in New England this weekend. Let's focus in on now Invest 98L in case you missed that update. 35 mile per hour winds, moving to the northwest at 10 miles an hour. Central pressure is 1007 millibars. Hasn't really moved around a whole lot compared to what we were watching the last couple of days. And the chance for development is pretty moderate. It's medium. 40% over the next 2 days, 50% over the next 7 days. The reason it's medium is because we do have warm sea surface temperatures that increases the chance for development, but we have a hostile wind which decreases that chance for development, and they're kind of battling it out. They're evening each other out. So that's why this is kind of a 50-50 thing right now. So we're going to have to wait and see. The National Hurricane Center says maybe late this week seeing a tropical depression form. These odds for development, these have actually been going up and down a little bit. Look, even compared to yesterday, this increased. Talking about this yesterday, it was a little bit lower. Now it's a little bit higher again. So we'll have to see. This is just a different forecast model. This is not a forecast from the National Hurricane Center. That's saying it's actually a pretty good chance for tropical depression development. A lot of people aren't really familiar what a tropical depression is because it doesn't always grab the headlines. It's just the weakest type of tropical system there is. It's a level below a tropical storm, and it just means it's the weakest type of wind you can get with a tropical system. It can still produce a lot of rain, though. Now, here are some of the temperatures compared to average. This is the thing I was telling you about that helps tropical development, increasing those chances. You've still got sea surface temperatures in the mid-80s. Folks, all you need is 80 degrees or warmer for that to be conducive to tropical development. But we do have some hostile winds out there, and that's not helping. I do also want to show you that, well, it's not exactly super common It's not exactly rare to be getting tropical activity in the month of November either, especially for this specific area of the Caribbean. When we do actually see tropical activity in the month of November, this is actually where we see it. So it's not that crazy to see this. Now, if this reaches tropical storm status, I'm not saying that's going to happen. If it does, it would get the name of Vince. If it manages to develop into a tropical depression late this week or this weekend, it just gets a number. It does not start off getting a name until it reaches tropical storm status. But just letting you know, we're so close to the end of the Atlantic hurricane season. In fact, historically speaking, we've got less than 2% of tropical activity remaining. So we are almost there. We are so close to seeing this. So far this season, 20 named storms. That's anything tropical storm or stronger. The average is 14. We were actually right on the money for what's average for hurricanes and major hurricanes. 7 and 3 of those overall. Record start, then a quiet period from end of June into the first half of August. Second half of August into about halfway through October, nearly constant. And then it's quieted down a lot more recently, which is a little bit more typical. Okay, I do want to give you an update coming out of Iceland. In case you missed it, they've had a lot of earthquakes recently, a series of earthquakes. That has led to a significant chance for a volcanic eruption in portions of Grindavik, Iceland. Now, here's an update for you. The Icelandic Meteorological Office says the size and intensity of the seismic activity is decreasing. This past weekend, the office said they're preparing for a volcanic eruption in the southwest of the island in the coming days after a series of earthquakes and evidence of magma spreading rapidly underground, saying that there was a considerable risk of an eruption just near the Reykjanes Peninsula. State media reports that some residents of the fishing town of Grindavik have been allowed back in to retrieve valuables after Iceland's Civil Protection Agency ordered a complete evacuation this past weekend. That town has a population of around 3,000. Now, if we do see that volcanic eruption, it's not going to be the kind that spews a lot of ash into the atmosphere, which would otherwise lead to a lot of issues with international air travel. But this is going to be more in the threat of lava flows. Not good for the town of Grindavik that you're looking at here. That's why those evacuations are still in place. And even if that eruption doesn't happen, which they've been saying there's a good chance of that happening over the last couple of days, look what was left from the series of earthquakes, right? The earth tearing apart. I mean, their town was completely torn to bits. It's heartbreaking. Let's talk about the timeline here. October 25th, there was the first of intense earthquakes detected north of Grindavik. And the reason we specify intense earthquakes is because earthquakes actually happen all the time. It's just the vast majority of them are so incredibly weak we don't even feel them. From October 25th through November 10th, there were more than 22,000 earthquakes. November 10th, the evacuations began, and now they're still saying that there is that threat for that volcanic eruption. Okay, let's talk about the next 7 all across the country, whether or not you've got active weather. Thursday is actually pretty quiet for a lot of us. Yes, we still have chances for rain in areas of Florida. We don't want that. Isolated rain chance in areas of California. Seattle, though, brighter, 48. New York, 64 and sunny. Chicago, you're even warmer, 67. Kansas City, 66. Dallas, 68 and cloudy. Denver, 65. El Paso, 76. Bismarck, down to the 40s. You're a little bit chilly. As we go into your Friday, here's that next system that we're watching for the East Coast and the Northeast. Just a piece of advice. Whether you're traveling by car or by air on Friday, anywhere from Kentucky, Tennessee, up into the Northeast, that rain and a little bit of gusty wind can create issues, especially at the airports. Rain can slow things down, you'd be surprised. Wind can especially slow things down, and there are going to be some 20, 30, 40 mile per hour wind gusts across areas of the Northeast on Friday. And while many people don't have the capability, some people can't travel for Thanksgiving until closer to Thanksgiving Day. Friday, though, this weekend is a pretty big travel weekend. Saturday, first half of the weekend, could be some lingering rain in areas of the Northeast and across California, Pacific Northwest getting in on that chance. Seattle, you're back to the 50s, but you're wet. Sunday, we're now watching the next storm system begin to come to fruition. That's going to impact a lot of us next week. For Sunday, rain and snow in the Rockies, rain in the plains. Kansas City, Dallas, you're getting in on that chance for some rain. For Monday, here we go. System tracks east. Up and down the plains, widespread rain. Keep that in mind if you're traveling that day. Kansas City, you're getting in on the chance for rain. Chicago, you're getting in on the chance for rain. Atlanta, you're getting in on the chance of rain. Really all across the Ohio River Valley and the Mississippi River. Jumping into your Tuesday, we're now getting closer to Thanksgiving Day. Chicago, New York City, Atlanta, 40s, 50s, and 60s, so primarily rain. But that rain, again, is going to be impacting a lot of us traveling right before the holiday. In fact, that goes all the way down into Alabama and Georgia, for example. Seattle, you still got a chance for rain as we head into your Tuesday. Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, still have some lingering rain, especially along the coastline all across the East Coast from Florida into Georgia, into the Carolinas, New York City. You do have a chance for rain as we get into your Wednesday, and this is next Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving Day. Seattle, you have a chance for an isolated shower. California is drying out a little bit. Desert Southwest is drying out. The Central Plains is drying out as well. Mississippi Valley, Ohio River Valley is drying out. But I just want to make sure you're aware of this. Speaking of Thanksgiving, though, I am going to be giving you an early preview at what we could see for Thanksgiving. We have a better idea what's happening this week for Thanksgiving travel. I'll be talking more about that in detail with an update in a couple minutes. See you back here soon.
Wolf, it doesn't look like that's slowing down. The U.S. promising that if they continue, it will carry out more strikes.
There's been apparently a tense interaction in the Capitol hallways with Congressman Tim Burchett, who is one of the 8 Republicans who voted out Kevin McCarthy from the speakership, and apparently had a bit of a dust-up in the hallways himself with Kevin McCarthy. And I have Congressman Burchett with us here right now. So, Congressman, explain to us what happened with you and Kevin McCarthy.
Well, I was doing an interview with Claudia from NPR. A lovely lady, and she was asking me a question, and at that time I got elbowed in the back, and it kind of caught me off guard because it was a clean shot to the kidneys, and I turned back, and there was Kevin, and I for a minute I was kind of, what the heck just happened? And then I chased after him. Of course, he's as I've stated many times, he's a bully with $17 million in a security detail. He's the type of guy that, when you're a kid, would throw a rock over the fence and run home and hide behind his mama's skirt. And he just, he from behind, that kind of stuff. That's not the way we handle things in East Tennessee. If we have a problem with somebody, I'm going to look them in the eye and talk to them.
Okay, so he walked down the hallway, hit you in with his elbow.
Yeah, you can go on Claudia's Twitter account. It pretty much, or X account. It's very accurate.
Okay, so then just explain. So you chased him? What do you mean you chased him?
I just ran after him. I was like, what the heck? Why'd you do that? Because it was, like I said, if you've ever been hit in the kidneys, it's a little different. You don't have to hit very hard to cause a little bit of pain, a lot of pain. And so he just, of course, as he always does, he just denies it or blame somebody else or something, and it was just a little heated, but I just backed off because I saw no reason. I wasn't gaining anything from it, and then everybody saw it, so it didn't really matter.
But he responded to you?
Yeah, he just acted like, what are you talking about? Who are you? That kind of thing, and it's just, I think that's symptomatic of the problems that he's had in his short tenure as speaker.
And were you face to face when you had this interaction?
Yeah, but there's security detail, and I get it. They were doing their job, so it wasn't exactly like he wouldn't turn around and face me. He kept scurrying, trying to keep people between me and him.
And then so where did he?
I just let it go at that point. It wasn't.
Were you yelling?
He was. Yeah, I raised my voice to him. I thought it was appropriate. You just don't expect a guy who was at one time 3 steps away from the White House to hit you with a sucker punch in the hallway.
And did he raise his voice back to you?
Yeah, just that high-pitched kind of thing, I believe, and that was about it.
And did he walk into his office? How did this end?
No, he just kept on walking down the hall. I don't know where his office is now. And he had his detail and his posse, so to speak, was with him.
So did his detail try to stop you?
Do what?
Did his detail try to stop you?
The detail kind of got one guy got between us there towards the end, but I wasn't looking to knock him out or anything. I just wanted to let him know I know it was him.
Were you injured?
I don't know, injured, man.
Did it hurt?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it still hurts because it was a shot to the kidneys, and it still hurts. Oddly enough, it's not anything probably not gonna do an ethics complaint on him. He's not worth it. You know, he's gonna be gone here either after Christmas or next year. And like I said, you know, he's got the $17 million, and he's gonna keep. You know, he's already messing in everybody's races, and we all know that.
Are you accusing him of assault?
Am I accusing him
of assault?
I don't know. Ask a lawyer. It's over as far as I'm concerned.
He said to our colleague Melanie Zanona that this was a tight hallway. He denies this interaction. He says a tight hallway, and I bumped into him. He says that this is not an intentional thing.
There's 435 congressmen. I was one of 8 that voted against him. That hallway was, there's plenty of room. You can walk four side by side. He chose to do what he did.
This is Tina. Tina's not what you'd call a sound sleeper, so Tina's husband, Tim, wants a new mattress. Haverty's wide selection of top brand mattresses and knowledgeable associates mean they can find a mattress that's right for them, where they're
feels like there's never enough money to buy what you need.
Tonight, President Joe Biden is looking ahead as he tries to put the country's relationship with China on a more normal track. Good evening, I'm George Estevez. The president sat down with China's president in California to talk trade, technology, and fentanyl. We begin with Samantha Manning.
President Joe Biden's summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping coming months after high tensions between the two countries.
There's a lot going on, and I think that both sides are looking for a little bit of stabilization in the relationship.
Biden said one goal for the meeting is to improve things.
We have to ensure that competition does not veer into conflict.
For the leaders of the world's 2 largest economies, trade is a top issue. In the first 9 months of 2023, Mexico and Canada eclipsed China as America's top trading partners. The Biden administration framing it as a way to minimize risk from exposure to increased geopolitical uncertainty without an all-out decoupling of the 2 economic superpowers.
The trade relationship is enormously important to both countries. That doesn't mean that there aren't very real concerns about the behavior of the other country.
Lily McWelly is an expert in Chinese foreign policy at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. She says an agreement to crack down on the export of chemicals used to make fentanyl, expected to be finalized at the summit, could be important for Biden here at home.
This is an important issue that galvanizes Republicans and Democrats, and I think it could be a big win if he's able to secure some agreements from Beijing.
Beijing has also been critical of the Biden administration's limits on the types of semiconductors U.S. companies can sell to China, the world's largest chip market. The Biden administration says it's a move to protect U.S. national security. Beijing has accused Washington of weaponizing trade and tech issues. I'm Samantha Manning, reporting from the Washington News Bureau.
And in the Israeli-Hamas war, Gaza's largest hospital, Al-Shifa, is now under Israeli control. Israeli Defense Forces released this video Wednesday. They launched a raid on the hospital after accusing Hamas of operating from tunnels underneath it. The militant group and hospital officials deny that claim. Egyptian health officials said Wednesday they're working to get dozens of newborn babies out of the hospital. A Massachusetts family is relieved to be home from the war zone. They escaped after being trapped with little food, water, and medicine for more than a month. Drew Caritas is in Boston with their story.
People are actually suffering by the minute, not by the day, by the minute.
Their long-awaited arrival at Logan Airport marks the end of a family vacation that turned into a fight for survival in the Gaza Strip for Hazem and Senna Shafi and their 3 kids who live in Plymouth.
We don't actually feel the joy as we're here. We left families and friends behind.
The Shafis took their 2, 10, and 13-year-old children to northern Gaza to get to know their extended family and learn the culture when the war between Israel and Hamas militants broke out.
We give them books to read. We had some card games. So when they hear the sounds, we say, just calm down. It's going to be okay.
The family moved locations 6 times, staying in several shelters to dodge the danger of airstrikes. After Mom and Dad were finally granted permission to cross the border into Egypt, they were stunned to learn that their kids weren't allowed through for 2 more days because of a mistake on the Israeli customs list.
The 7th time we actually made it through.
After finally escaping on their 7th trip to the Rafah border crossing, the family still faced a long journey home, processing traumatic memories and the reality that their relatives remain in grave danger.
Her cousin just got killed yesterday in the safe zone, walking, trying to go get bread. Who's getting hurt is the actually innocent people.
While they're reeling from the violence that continues to unfold, this family of 5 says they're feeling a whole lot of gratitude for all of the neighbors here in Massachusetts and the politicians who called for their safe return. At Boston's Logan Airport, I'm Drew Caritas.
Top intelligence officials say threats to U.S. citizens have intensified since Hamas's attack on Israel. Wednesday, FBI Director Christopher Wray told a House committee there is no known information to show Hamas is planning an attack here in the U.S., but it's a concern the agency is closely watching.
We cannot and do not discount the possibility that Hamas or another foreign terrorist organization may exploit the current conflict to conduct attacks here.
Security leaders are pushing for Congress to renew critical security tools that have expired or will soon. Right now, a week-long strike by nurses continues in Washington state. More than 1,300 nurses walked off the job Monday. As Gwen Baumgardner reports right near Seattle, the nurses are demanding better staffing.
Our nurses are standing up!
Nurses trading in scrubs for signs outside Providence Hospital.
I've been a nurse here at Providence, it used to be General, for 39 years, and I would never have thought I would go on strike.
This scene coming after contract negotiations stalled over competitive pay and safe staffing levels for nurses.
We were really disappointed that we got to this point with a strike, but that being said, we recognize and respect our nurses' rights. We care about our nurses. We value our nurses.
The hospital says they've offered flexible scheduling and a 21.5% raise.
It's a really good contract.
Nurses tell me that number is inflated and that their salaries aren't comparable to other hospitals.
Nurses are leaving in droves, and because they can go to another hospital and make $10 more an hour, why wouldn't they? With better staffing.
As for this week's staffing, the hospital is relying on traveling nurses and volunteers to fill the gap, saying despite the walkout, they are fully staffed.
But we don't like to say the Q word in the hospital, but things seem a little kind of quiet, but knock on wood. So
nurses skeptical, telling me this hospital hasn't been fully staffed in years, in part why they're outside today.
I've been telling family and friends for the last year and a half, if you need to go to the ER, unless it's a heart or stroke, don't come to Providence.
Many of the signs here speak to staffing levels and the need for more nurses. I asked the hospital about that. They said they currently have 164 open nursing positions. Reporting in Everett, Washington, I'm Gwen Baumgardner.
Parts of Florida are under a flood watch tonight. Here in Lauderdale Lakes, a tree slammed right into 2 cars Wednesday. Forecasters are watching a storm system in the Gulf of Mexico, which is bringing wind and rain to Florida this week. In Georgia now for the north of Florida, the extreme drought is having a dramatic effect on the state's biggest lake. So the water level at Lake Lanier is down by about 7 feet. Barrett Peterson talked to neighbors who say it could be a lot worse.
John Barker has lived along Lake Lanier for more than 20 years. He says what's happening this year, more specifically the last couple of months, has its pros and cons.
I like seeing a little bit of beach and a little bit of the sandy shoreline come back, and we haven't had it for a while.
After a super hot summer and an autumn drought, the lake level is down between 6 and 7 feet. Not enough to compromise the Atlanta area's drinking water supply, but for Barker, just enough to pretty things up a bit.
As nice as that is, it doesn't need to get any worse.
Jack Bennett has seen much worse.
Well, back in 07, it was a whole lot more dangerous because I think it was down like 13 feet.
Jack says unsafe for boaters who didn't know the place. On this day, hazards usually hidden are now in full view. Last spring, this island just off Mary Alice Park in Forsyth County would have been underwater. We met John Barker at Thompson Creek Park in Dawson County.
You need to know the lake, you need to know the channels, you need to stay where the water is deep enough to facilitate the boat, and frankly, if it gets a whole lot lower, it's not safe to go out there boating, even if you know the lake.
Reporting in Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Barrett Peterson.
This is something to see. Now, federal investigators are analyzing evidence at the scene of this bus crash that killed 6 people in Ohio. The National Transportation Safety Board says this wreck here involved a charter bus, a tractor trailer, and 3 other vehicles. This is I-70 right outside of Columbus on Tuesday. 3 students, 2 parent chaperones, and a teacher died. At a vigil Tuesday night, people filled a high school stadium to pray for the victims and their families.
We as a Tusky Valley community had the wind knocked out of us today.
I'm just in complete shock. I mean, being in class with some of these kids, it's crazy what they went through.
The NTSB is now working to figure out what led up to this crash. There's a new kind of treatment that could help veterans who are suffering with depression. As Kirsten Garris reports from Washington, D.C., the treatment is capturing the attention of lawmakers because it uses synthetic drugs like ecstasy.
I heard the pop. I thought I was dead, but the pain was still there. It was then that I realized that the ammunition malfunctioned.
Retired Army Sergeant Jonathan Lubecki says this was Christmas 2006, the first of 5 attempts to take his own life. He says he was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder after returning home from Iraq.
That doesn't include the daily ideation, the hundreds of times I stood on a bridge.
Lubecki says he experienced relief after a clinical trial for psychedelic-assisted therapy. It involves the monitored use of party drugs like ecstasy or Molly, along with intense therapy to help treat PTSD. Officials say these sessions last about 8 hours, the full duration of the drug's effects.
For the first time, I was able to freely talk about my demons without my body betraying me.
He's sharing his story on Capitol Hill as lawmakers review the effectiveness of this treatment. Doctors at the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs say they're still learning about the potential benefits.
Rigorous studies of VA patients are important because they often have mental and physical health challenges that can reduce the effectiveness of a treatment.
Lawmakers from both parties say this isn't about legalizing drugs, but instead advancing new treatment options.
What we are discussing is the clinically administered dosage of these substances in combination with targeted therapy sessions in a clinical setting.
We must weigh the risks and rewards carefully, recognizing the need for safeguards while also fostering innovation at VA and other federal agencies and expanding treatment options.
The VA is also testing the use of virtual reality to help veterans treat mental health conditions. I'm Kirsten Garris reporting from the Washington News Bureau.
Still to come, consumer advisor Clark Howard shares money-saving advice about credit unions. Plus, a police chief is asking people not to rush to judgment about this video showing an officer punching a woman.
The use of force doesn't fit the situation.
The moments leading up to the confrontation and what the chief says the public deserves to see tonight. Flying with cash, just know that police can't actually take it even if you're not doing anything wrong. We investigate the hoops you have to jump through to get your money back and the effort to end these seizures next. Fly with cash and police could take it without ever even having to prove you did anything wrong. Not only are law enforcement agencies seizing people's money at airports across the country, without a warrant, by the way, they're keeping it. As Justin Gray reports, it can be a long and expensive.
Brian Moore Jr. was flying from Atlanta to L.A. to shoot a music video.
I had about $8,500 on me.
Jerry Johnson was heading to Phoenix with the cash to buy a truck at auction.
It was $39,500.
Both men left the airport with their cash gone, seized by law enforcement.
It's nothing different being robbed. Somebody come up with a gun and take your money and then walk off.
This is a picture a DEA agent snapped of Brian Moore. That's him in the green hair at the gate at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, heading to Los Angeles.
They announced we were about to start boarding, and I was approached by 2 women.
Moore says they asked if he was carrying guns or drugs. He wasn't. They asked about cash, which he did have.
I've never been in a situation to where I was being treated as a terrorist or a criminal.